Hello and welcome back to the Soul-Led Career. This is your host, Marketa, and I have a very special guest here today. Tran, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Marketa. Hi, everyone listening. How's it
Tran,
going?
I would love you to explain people what is your role in this world right now? What are you up to? What you're doing?
Okay, so currently I'm actually a copywriter, but what I actually specialize in is actually sales copy and selling really in a very authentic way that just feels really good to you and it doesn't sound like anybody else.
I love that because even when I look on your Instagram, and I love absolutely what you're sharing because you really do look at sales from a completely different angle than I've ever seen everywhere before. And a lot of people have this weird feeling about sales. It feels like tacky, sleazy. It feels so weird. So I would definitely love to pick your brain on anything when it comes to authentic selling. But before even we get into that, like how did you actually get to be in this career?
Yeah, so long story short, I was in the legal industry. So I had a law degree, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And I had very big intentions of going to the UN and working at the international court. But then I decided that that just wasn't for me. And I wanted to do something more creative. So I bounced careers a lot, and I wasn't afraid to do it actually. In fact, I actually chose the short contracts if I felt they were going to be more fun and more something that I would really enjoy. And then, so I've had lots of different careers over the years. Like I was an event planner and then all different types of things. But then I came across being a closer, and that's someone who actually gets on the phone like a 50-minute call and they actually close you on a product or a service. And that led me down to being a sales copywriter because I'm a little bit of an introvert. So writing was better for me to talk about sales.
Mm. Can you elaborate a little bit of like what it's actually like to be a closer? So if I do understand it correctly, let's say there's a company that is selling a specific service or product and
Mm-hmm.
they bring a customer through a certain lead funnel, let's say, and then
Correct.
to make sure that the customer actually buys, you get on a call with them and you're trying to literally close them, right? Is that how I get it correctly?
Yes, yeah. And we can get to it a little bit later, but that is definitely the masculine way that we all explain it as well. But that's what we know it to be. So it's basically the beginning of a sales funnel where there's a free 15-minute call. My free 15-minute call is a lot different, and the people that I work with is now also a lot different with my calls. But essentially and historically, you would hop onto a 15-minute call or a 20-minute call, and the person that you would hop onto the phone call wouldn't be the person who actually sells a product. They're actually called a closer, and their job is to actually close you, which basically means close the sale. So whatever they have to do is to convince you to actually make the sale on the call, and then they get a commission out of closing the sale, and that's how basically it works.
Mm. Even from what you say, yes, definitely a very masculine way of working. What
Mm.
did you say? What would you say is something that you have learned in this type of job?
Yeah, so being a closer now, I still am a closer. Copywriting is, however, my main thing. I'm just a closer in terms of my current clients, and they like what I do, so I close for them as well. But now, the I've reframed the whole thing, as in closing is actually not my job to convince anybody or persuade anybody. It's just really to communicate to the other person to see what they love to do or what they don't love to do, and if this is something that's going to really help them. And if it isn't, then it actually is my job to actually tell them or give them another product or another service that will help them, but not exactly close them on the call for that specific product that they got onto. So it's less about me and about the brand than it is about the person. And actually, when I do that, 9 times out of 10, I do close the person on the sales call, but it's not because I'm salesy or anything. It's really because I'm there to talk about them and what they need. And I actually never have a script, which is also one of the biggest differences I have as well.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate to that in many different ways because I feel like when it comes to being a closer, almost everyone is a closer, no matter what job they're doing, right? It's just not going to be called this way, but this
Correct.
act of closing is going to be somehow part of their job. Like I actually worked in a call center, so in a sense, I was a closer. It was very, very
Yeah.
brief. It was kind of horrible, but actually, even from what you're what you're saying, like that other people have scripts, I feel like, especially when it's kind of like a low paying job, because typical closer is definitely not a low paying job, right? The commission that you can make can be a pretty nice amount of money. But from where I was, it was a student job, like you get literally almost nothing. And therefore, you hire there are certain types of people who don't expect high salaries, right? And with that,
Mhm.
literally is the type of people who can only read script. So then you don't even have an option not to read script. You literally have to say these things. When it comes to, let's say, if right now someone is listening and is actually employing people who need to close other people on a business, how would you
Yeah.
advise them to lead them? So instead of giving them script, how would you kind of like coach someone who is supposed to close deals?
Yeah, that's really an interesting question, because I was also given scripts, and I've been in sales for most of my life as well, trying to find my own authenticity in what I do. And I would literally throw out the script. Um, it's not a good thing to do, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do it.
I
but
would.
but I would go up to the manager and I would say to the manager, do I actually have to say all this stuff? That's a first step. And then they would say, and if they were really good with me trying to find my own place, then they would go, okay, can you actually use the script, but just put your own spin on it, or see how you can find a way that you feel comfortable with saying that. You don't have to say as the script, but maybe say it in a way that you feel comfortable with. So that's something that other managers have told me in the past when I've worked for other people with a script as well. Nowadays, I don't have a script only because people trust me to do my job and they know that I just do it. So I don't actually have a script and they don't need me to give a script. But if you're in a position that you do have a script, I would suggest finding your own voice inside that script. So it is, I would say, still a nice idea to have a script if you're new and you don't know what it is, and the brand is trying to be very cohesive as well. So you don't have everybody running around saying different or giving different guarantees or different promises as well. That you can't really have that. But it's always such a good idea to go, okay, well, if this was me, and actually, that's the second thing I would say. I would say, do you believe in the product or the service that you're selling? That's number one. Like, do you believe in it? And if you do believe in it, then you go, okay, well, how do I say this that I know that people are going to really feel into it? And that's what I would do. So, number one, do you actually believe in what you're selling? And number two, how would you say this in your own voice?
I would even add something to that. I'm sure that this is something that's also going to be relatable for you. I feel like a lot of people, when they are trying to sell something, literally, whether it's going to be in a physical store, on a call, or even like as a conversation, they are thinking so much about what they are going to say that they don't actually listen to the other person, because the other person most of the time tell you what they actually want. So you literally just need to listen and then respond to what they want.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So it's definitely this sort of play where you know what you need to do with the company, but on the other side of it, you kind of throw the playbook rules out, and then in that moment, you're just completely present, and it's just you and that person. That's all it is. It's just you and the person, and then we won't talk about it, but that you can sell in a group situation as well, which I've done, but we won't talk about it. But it's just definitely just being a present, which will help with
Mm.
the listening.
Mhm. So you talk about authenticity and being authentic
Mm,
when you're selling. How
yeah.
exactly would you for yourself define authenticity? Like, what do you mean when you say that?
Okay. So in selling, there is a lot of masculine energy, and this is probably what you'll reading in the Instagram posts that I was posting and everything about that, because I truly believe that copywriting and selling is very strategy based. It's very outcome based, it's results based, it's goal orientated. So you get a lot of the masculine energy, and there's a lot of, and because of that, there's a lot of to do. I have to do this, or I have to do that, or how are we going to get there? And the feminine side of that, or the authenticity side that I like to play with, is it's less about how or having to do and more about being and going inside. So it kind of releases this strategy and going within yourself and going, okay, well, do I really actually want to say this, or how is this going to fit with me, or how, and it's just about coming back to yourself and asking questions. And I find that that also relieves the pressure of people writing copy or writing to sell as well, because they feel like they can, it just gives them permission to be themselves. And when they do that, all of a sudden, you get this energy field of attraction when you do that. And then the sales copy just becomes, just completely magnetizes whoever you're trying to attract. It's incredible to watch, but it does happen.
Mm-hmm. For anyone who is absolutely new in this and have no idea what you're talking about, when you even the terms, right? Masculine, feminine selling, what does that even mean? But
Mm,
they somehow understand, okay, the strategy is masculine. Okay, I get this part because that's what we are taught.
mm.
What is a way how maybe somebody who's completely at the beginning of trying to sell a bit differently because maybe they feel uncomfortable in the typical ways, how do you think that somebody could actually tap into this and finding their feminine flow, finding their own authentic voice?
Okay. I'm going to give you an example of when I had my breakthrough, and it just might help. I'm not sure, but
Mhm.
it just might help if I give you an example of how it happened for me. So, how it happened for me was I remember being 15, I was in my first job, and I hated the selling thing, and I was a salesperson. And my manager at the time was like, "Why aren't you talking to anybody?" And I said, "I just don't want to sell." Like, and he said to me, "Well, that means you don't want to be here." And I said, "That's actually not true. I do want to be here, but I just don't feel good about going up to people and saying, 'Hi, how are you?' and selling them something." And he goes, "Tran, why don't you start with this? Why don't you just smile and then go from there?" And I said, "Okay, I can do that. I can do that." And then every single person that came in after that, I just smiled. I didn't have to say anything, but I just smiled. And then immediately it just released this sense of having to sell them something down their throat. But as soon as I did that, as soon as I became a lot more nurturing, I would say, like a lot more freeing, and I showed my own emotions of how I was feeling, that's the feminine energy coming through. And people can feel emotion with everything you do. And when you do that, when I did that, all of a sudden, if I just smiled at them and I walked away and said, "Oh my God, that was so scary." And then if they needed something, they could come up to me because they felt I was so much more approachable, and they would come up to me, ask questions, and then the sale happened so organically after that. And that happened when I was 15. But and obviously I've had to build on that, but that was definitely a breakthrough. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, Marketa. Is that what you mean?
I think you did for me because you said there's something that brought me to so many other thoughts. Because you said
Mm,
the moment that you start nurturing somebody, and just the word nurture, I feel like it captured it so well, because that's literally right, feminine energy, nurturing, like literally what mother nurtures the children, right? And we all have it
mm,
inside of us. And I feel like being in a physical shop is such a good example because it makes it understandable so easily, because literally you will, everyone knows these shops that when you walk in and somebody literally jumps all over you and is doing like this product, this product, this product. But if somebody else comes and exactly what you say, just smiles, and then you feel like, oh, I actually had a question, I'm going to ask them something. Or they're just going to ask you, are you looking for something specific? Can I help you? And it feels different than, what are you here to buy? It's in a way, it's just a conversation starter. And it
Absolutely.
reminds me of one thing. So my dad is actually in sales. My whole life, he's in the same company, same product that he's selling. And again, when you said the nurturing thing, I right away thought of him because he has personal relationships with all of the clients. He calls them when it's their birthdays. He almost like know the birthdays of their children, all of this. And he keeps selling products to the same people for 20 years. And I have to say, when I got in sales, I just suddenly saw him in a different way. I saw him how much he has this masculine way of selling and then the feminine way of saying, obviously without being able to name it, because for him it's just natural. But it's so interesting to maybe even look at the people around you who already are selling and kind of like just look at the way how they're doing it and what you feel comfortable about what they're doing and maybe what you don't feel comfortable that they are doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm so sorry. I'm going to disturb the episode just for a minute because I wanted to tell you about something really, really exciting going right now in the world of soul-led career. So a few days ago, I was running a very, very exciting workshop on the topic of building your best life and a career that supports it. In my world, I don't believe that it should be the other way around. We are here to live. And on top of that, we get to have a very, very fulfilling career that is going to support the lifestyle that we truly desire. And in this workshop, it was 1.5 hour amazing workshop, pretty like it was so cool. And we got to discover together with the participants about what it is that they actually truly want from life. Because often we have been conditioned into what we think that we should have, what we think that success is, what we think that being rich is. And the moment when we decide to decondition from that and actually peel off the layers of that metaphorical onion, we realize that we might be living someone else's idea of success. And maybe we have been running after something that we don't actually want. So we get to the place when we finally realize what is it that we want. And this is the best place to start building your new life and new career from. So I'm inviting you to join that workshop as well. Even though it was already live and it's recorded, you can still get the replay for free. And I'm so excited for you to go and dive deep into that. Just go and visit the link in the description of this podcast episode and go ahead. Enjoy. Now let's get back to the episode.
And I also want to touch upon something that you said that was really important. So even though I'm trying to balance the nurturing side of sales and the feminine side and the more emotional, heart-led side of sales, I do want to say and just reiterate what you just said is that everybody has this. Like everybody has a feminine and a masculine side. It's not that masculine, feminine, masculine energy means that you're a guy or feminine energy means you're a girl. It's just that everybody actually has both of it. And you will see both of it in someone who is a leader. So you will see that in someone like Steve Jobs, who is both a nurturer when he talks about the products and he loves it so much. And this feeling of love, this product that he just worked so hard with, to do. But you can also feel this feminine energy, and you feel it with a lot of motivational speakers and guys as well. They've got this feminine and masculine energy. You feel it in also female empowerment speakers as well. They've got both this masculine and feminine energy that just completely balances the whole ecosystem. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what you said, that it's not like to tip the scale on one end or the other to say one is bad, one is good. It's not like that at all. It's just we need both to actually thrive.
I love that. I love that. How are you specifically right now currently helping somebody? Is there a way how somebody can actually work with you if they feel like, okay, I understand the concept, but I still don't really know how to actually put it in action?
Yeah, so at the moment we're actually doing this hour of power, and I found that this is actually the best way to kind of just tap into what you need and also for you to get something out of it as well. And so it's just an hour. I say it's an hour, but it's really an hour and a half of our power. And you basically just come to me with a whole bunch of questions of how you can better be more authentic in what you do, or even if you don't want to use the word authentic, we can use the word genuine if you don't understand what authentic means. So it's just another way to say more genuine or give you permission to be more of yourself in what you do as well. So just finding that who you are in what you do. And also, if there's a sales and conversion aspect of it, how can you actually create sales from that place, which is also a tricky business if you're not sure, if you're new to that area as well, which is also a really good place to start.
And we kind of like kind of touch upon it a little bit at the beginning, that sales is not necessary only for like the knowledge of sales and the act of sales is not only for people who actually are salespeople. Who do you think this type of service would be valuable for, apart from obviously salespeople?
Yeah, honestly, I have found that the sales side of me, even when I was a teenager, has really grown, and I've used it in everything that I've done. I've used it for job interviews, I've used it for my resumes, I've used it for even when I talk to my friends and my family and I want them to do something else, not because for me, but I want them to see maybe a different perspective or reframe things differently or make them see that, things are actually more positive than it actually is. And just getting through those walls has been really powerful as well. So sales isn't actually to sell something into buying something. It just could be communicating. Basically, it's just communicating something so that someone can see things from a different perspective, possibly be inspired to be their next, next level version of themselves. In terms of like for myself, when I've used it for interviews, it's actually knowing what they are going to ask you and actually making them see how you are someone who's actually going to fit into their role. And I've used it many, many occasions to get all the roles, and I can tell you all the roles that I've ever gotten, and you will say, "Wow, how did you get that role?" Because and like just recently, I was at Apple. I've got no technical experience whatsoever. And all my friends and family laughed at me because they said, "How did you even get a job at Apple?" But it's not about that. If you actually understand what sales is or understand who you are or can communicate effectively of who you are to get that point across, then that's the whole point.
I especially the last sentence of learning how to effectively communicate who you are. I feel like this is like a bomb. This is amazing. I absolutely agree with you. I had to just like laugh a little bit because what you said about the job interviews is literally, recently released a course where I literally talk about the specific things on how to sell yourself in a job interview. So I find it hilarious because this is what I mean. Like sales
Yeah.
is necessary for everyone. I don't care if you're a salesperson or not. Every conversation that you have is a sales conversation. I absolutely,
100%.
yeah, I absolutely love this angle. And absolutely, I actually do have a few people online who in the past I followed. I even some sales I learned from dating advice. Then you can learn sales and actually apply it in dating, in friendships, in walking down the street and asking somebody what time it is, whatever it is. And I feel like when you take the pressure of having to sell a product, having to sell a service, and when you take the pressure of it having to be a transaction, you suddenly
Yeah.
start practicing sales in this genuine, authentic way that you're talking about. When it's literally about like just like, oh, I'm gonna practice to have a conversation. I'm gonna practice to sell myself to a stranger on the street. And I'm not talking
Yeah.
about pickup lines.
No, no, definitely not. And I don't know if this is going to help, but this is a tip that I also give a lot to people who ask me how to actually break into it. Because there's a difference between trying too hard to be yourself versus trying to be your next level self or embodying that next level self. And that's two completely different things when it comes to communicating who you are as a person. So, and people can see that. So, you might be so desperate wanting to be who you are authentically, but it doesn't come across naturally. And that's also going to flop as well. So what you need to do is actually embody who you want to be and actually sell that version. And because you're selling that version, that's the more aligned version of who you are. And because of that, that will attract whatever it is that you want to bring into your life.
I love that. And maybe I would just add one thing to that. You know, the reason why people might have troubles with this fake it till you make it, because somebody might call it this way, right? But in a sense, it's
Yes.
really like this embodying the new version. But I feel like
Yes.
then when you can come into troubles is that when you're trying to be this person where you're not yet sure if you are that next level version, and you are trying to be this person around people who know your what now we want to think as old version, because they want to keep reminding you that this is not you and stop acting so weird. So maybe it's especially good to start practicing this in the moments when you are completely alone or without anyone who knows you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Makata, because even in my social media at the moment, if you have a look at that, I do a lot of creative work. So I do a lot of painting and drawing and sketching. And those are the things that I used to do as a kid, but I never picked up that paintbrush or that drawing again because my parents always said, you know, you can't make money from art, or there's that like limiting belief that you shouldn't be doing that. So when I started to actually embody that and go, you know what, this is actually who I am, and there was this kind of there's this energy of almost like rubbing plates together of who you are actually and who people think you are, or the old version of yourself. And you just need to give yourself once again permission to just ignore that and step into that person. And I found that as soon as I've done that and I create all my social media posts with me painting or drawing or me being myself, it just has this different level of vibration. Like, I don't know, Makeda, you can tell me from the out point, but I just feel like it's so different when I post a reel or post a quote with me just being me versus, yeah, something else as well.
Yeah, and also because you really do have a very original way of delivering that whenever I see the post, I already know it's you. So really there's something that I'm like, oh, Tran is another one. And especially as I'm a person, I'm a audiovisual person. I'm not, when it comes to the internet, I don't like to read. And I love actually reading books, but for whatever reason, when it's on the screen, I cannot read it. And literally,
Yeah.
it's only your post that I actually read, because I
Oh,
always know there's just something that, also the fact that it's easily digestible, it is connected to the feminine, yet it's so easily understandable, almost like it's also put into this kind of like masculine way of delivering it, if it makes sense.
yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And just going on the fact that you have to shed your old beliefs and you have to just ignore what everybody else is doing, what your friends and family know you as, in order to step into the other place. Because what I also want to touch on with what you said very quickly is that just, and I did an Instagram story on this as well. So you can get really inspired with everything out there. You can get inspired with salespersons, you know, go-to salespersons. You can be inspired by this podcast and all of this other things, and you can go, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll try it. And sometimes there is this trial and error of how you want to be. But on the other flip side of it is, I want to say this is because I actually did this just recently last week. I posted 2 posts and I did that based on, wow, that's such a great idea. Maybe I'll have a go at that. Maybe I actually really like that. But as soon as I posted those 2 posts that everybody else did, it felt icky, it felt yucky, even though everybody had such a huge success out of those type of posts. So I immediately deleted them because I didn't want to ruin the vibration that my content was emitting out there as well. So I just want to just say that just ignore what your friends and family were doing, ignore what everybody else is doing, and just trust, and go deep within yourself and know that you have already the answers and just create content from that place.
Mm. What I'm going to say right now, it might seem a little bit random, but actually, way before I consciously was thinking about selling, I actually started doing this with traveling because I love to travel alone. And I realized it actually for the first time when I was 16, because it was the first time when I traveled abroad by myself for like an extended period of time. And I was with a group of people from, I think, like 11 or 14 countries in Europe. So, and I was actually the only Czech person there. So nobody spoke my language. And I realized that I actually didn't want to go there at the beginning. And the first day I think I got there, I suddenly felt this huge freedom of, holy shit, I can be whoever I want. Nobody knows me here. And it's so crazy because like it's been a lot of years ago and I still have this memory of it, because that day and that at that moment something shifted in me, and I realized that I can choose who I'm going to be, how I'm going to show up, who I'm going to embody. And then throughout the years it was becoming more and more obvious within the different roles. And especially I really then felt that every time when I actually had to pick up a call and make a business development call or just having any kind of sales conversation, I always almost felt like I'm playing a role, but like at the same time, it's me. But I almost always felt like I'm putting on a costume, and now I'm just speaking as a certain character. And at times when it felt weird that maybe I was shy or something, because I am a natural shy person, even though I'm sure on the internet I don't seem like it. But in the moment when I thought of it almost like I have a costume and I'm playing a role, it felt so much more easier to do it. And then it was becoming so much more natural.
That really digs into my heart, and I'll tell you why. Because you've hit the nail on the head in terms of also how you sell. So this goes out to anybody who also has a sales position as well, or is reframing anybody or selling anything or communicating anything as well. There's this level of attachment that people have with sales, and so they feel like it has to be. They get stuck on this level of like, oh, I have to make these KPIs, or I have to make this certain level of sales, or I have to make my sister understand or my brother understand this, or why won't my mum listen to me? Like there's a certain level of attachment. Even when you're dating as well, oh, this is the person or the one for me. But if you actually just, as you said, wear this, think of it as just like a role or just a version of what it is that you're doing, it just automatically becomes completely different. And there's this different vibrational energy of you have everything you could ever want. And this is just another part of who you are, because we are so complex and our job titles don't define who you are. And I might not be doing this for the next 10 years. I could be doing something else because it evolves and you evolve and things feel differently and your messaging could be differently. But right now, this is where you are and this is where your heart is and this is where your heart wants to be. And if you hold yourself to that too much, you'll get stuck and you won't be able to grow through it, and you won't be able to shed those layers and become different versions of
This
whatever it is.
this is beautiful. I think this was a perfect way to end this conversation. Tran, you have mentioned Power Hour. How can somebody reach out to you if they want to maybe have a consultation for their business, for their company? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, amazing. So the hour of power, is something really fun that we've come up with. As I was saying, you can go directly into my Instagram. Just have a look at my post to see if you actually do get the feel of the vibes, that you're really vibing with it and really does speak to you and you really do feel connected to it. And if you do feel connected to it, then go into my link in my profile, because you can find the hour of power there, and then you can just book a time that suits you and we can go through it, and you'll be able to see exactly just how I speak or how I talk and things like that as well. If you're still not sure, you can book a 15-minute call with me. I promise I won't try and sell you anything. It's not a pitch. It's just literally seeing what kind of packages will suit you. Because most of the time, what I will say is that when someone gets on a call, 15-minute call, it's not so much, do I want to work with this person? It's, well, which package is going to suit me, and how am I going to get the best transformation out of it? So if that suits you, you can do that. But the hour of power is definitely where you want to be if you already feel connected to all the content.
Perfect. I'm sure that already after this conversation, there's gonna be people who don't even have to look on your Instagram. So I will also link directly the link to that specific offer. And
Yes,
Tran,
yeah.
thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation. I feel like this was really a way how to look at sales from a completely different point of view, and I'm sure it's going to be valuable for a lot of people who might be struggling in this field.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye.